Keisha Brown stood under the harsh glow of a flickering gas station light, the night heavy with rain and engine smoke. In her hand, 6 crumpled dollars, the last she had. Her stomach twisted as she stared at them. That money was supposed to buy a loaf of bread and milk for her little brother in the morning. Thunder rolled across the sky, low and angry. Then another sound cut through the rain, the roar of a motorcycle pulling into the lot, chrome flashing beneath the streetlight. The rider, a big man in a black leather vest, parked beside the pump. For a second, Keisha didn't look twice. But then she heard it, a choked gasp. The man stumbled, his helmet slipping from his hand, eyes wide with panic. He clutched his chest and fell hard against the pavement. His body convulsed once, then went still. Keisha froze. Behind the glass, the cashier leaned out the door and shouted, "Leave him! Those people are trouble!" She looked down at her $6. Looked back at the man lying in the rain. Nobody else was moving. Cars passed by on the road like nothing was happening. Her heart pounded so loud she could barely hear herself think. $6 or a man's life. Her grandmother's words whispered in her memory. "Kindness don't cost a thing, baby." Keisha took a step toward him. Then another. The cashier yelled again, "Don't do it, girl! Don't get involved!" But she didn't stop. She looked at the man's gray face, the rain pooling under him, and made her choice. She turned, ran inside the gas station, and slammed her $6 on the counter. That decision, that tiny act, would change her life forever. Just 24 hours earlier, Keisha Brown's world already felt like it was falling apart. Her alarm went off at 5 a.m., the same cracked phone screen lighting up her one-bedroom apartment. She rolled out of bed quietly so she wouldn't wake her little brother Malik, who was curled up on the couch under a thin blanket. He was only 8, too young to understand why their fridge was almost empty again. Keisha tiptoed into the kitchen, opened the door, and stared at what was left. Half a bottle of milk, 1 egg, and a jar of peanut butter. The light inside flickered weakly, like it knew it was losing power too. On the fridge door, a red notice fluttered in the breeze from the window. Eviction warning. She pressed her forehead against it and whispered, "Just give me 1 more week." Her father had left when she was 14. Her mother, once the strongest woman she knew, was now battling an illness that kept her mostly in bed. So Keisha worked 2 jobs, mornings at a laundromat, nights at a small diner off the highway, folding strangers' clothes for $11 an hour, pouring coffee for truckers who never tipped enough to matter. Every night, when she came home with sore feet and half a smile, Malik would ask, "Did you eat, sis?" And she'd lie, "Yeah, I grabbed something at work." The truth was, she hadn't had a real meal in 2 days, but no matter how bad things got, she always heard her grandmother's voice echoing in her mind. "Kindness don't cost a thing, baby. Even when you got nothing, you can still give something." That saying had carried her through every hardship, every late rent notice, every sleepless night. Now, with payday still 3 days away and $6 left in her pocket, she didn't know how much longer she could keep holding on. $6 to her name. And tomorrow, nothing left. Rain poured harder now, soaking through Keisha's hoodie as she knelt beside the man sprawled on the pavement. His breaths came in short, broken bursts. One hand clutched his chest, the other trembled against the cold ground. His motorcycle still idled beside him, engine growling like it was alive. "Sir? Can you hear me?" Keisha's voice shook. No response, just a faint rattling gasp. The gas station door creaked open. The cashier leaned out again, cigarette in his mouth, eyes wide. "Hey, leave him be. You don't want trouble with those people." 2 men who'd just fueled up stood by their truck watching, arms crossed. One muttered, "Don't touch him, girl. He's probably high." Keisha's heart pounded. She looked around. No one was calling 911. No one was moving. They were all just watching him die. Her phone buzzed weakly in her pocket. She yanked it out. 1 bar of signal, 5% battery. She tried dialing emergency services, but the call dropped before it even rang. She cursed under her breath. The man's eyes rolled back. His lips turned pale. She could see it. He was slipping away. What if he dies and I walk away? The thought stabbed through her chest like ice. Her grandmother's words whispered again, "Kindness don't cost a thing." Baby. Keisha jumped to her feet, dashed into the gas station, and slammed her 6 crumpled dollars on the counter. "A bottle of water and aspirin! Hurry!" The cashier just stared, muttering, "You're wasting your money!" "Please," she snapped. He finally tossed the bottle and pills across the counter. She ran back out, nearly slipping on the wet pavement. Kneeling beside the biker, she tore the seal off the bottle, shook 2 tablets into her palm, and gently lifted his head. "Come on, stay with me. Please, chew these, okay?" He barely managed to open his mouth. She slid the pills in, held the water to his lips. He swallowed weakly, then coughed, one deep, desperate breath. "Stay with me," she whispered again, tears mixing with the rain. "Just stay with me." In the distance, faint sirens began to wail. Keisha looked down at her trembling hands, covered in water and grease. She had nothing left. But she'd done something no one else dared to do. She didn't know it yet, but the man she just saved was the last person anyone should ever cross. Red and blue lights painted the rain-slicked parking lot as the ambulance screeched to a stop. Paramedics jumped out, shouting orders to each other. One knelt beside the biker, pressing a stethoscope to his chest. "What did you give him?" the medic asked. "Aspirin, 2 tablets. Maybe 3 minutes ago," Keisha said, still shaking. The medic nodded, impressed. "Good call. You probably just saved his life." She exhaled, dizzy with relief as they lifted the man onto a stretcher. His hand brushed hers weakly. His eyes opened for just a moment. He tried to speak, but the oxygen mask covered his mouth. Still, his eyes said everything. "Thank you." Then another motorcycle roared into the lot. The rider jumped off, young, tattooed, rain dripping from his jacket. He froze when he saw the stretcher. "Hawk!" he shouted, then looked at Keisha, confused. You helped him?" "He needed it," she said quietly. The man stared at her like he couldn't believe it. "Most people cross the street when they see us." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a plain white card. On it, a small golden crown with wings and a single phone number. "Call this tomorrow," he said. "He'll want to thank you himself." Keisha shook her head. "I don't need thanks. I just did what anyone should do." "Anyone? Maybe, but not everyone." He pressed the card into her hand. "Promise me you'll call." Before she could answer, he swung onto his bike, revved the engine, and disappeared into the storm. Keisha stood there, drenched, $6 gone, 50 cents left in her pocket, staring at that strange white card. She slipped it into her coat and started the long walk home. She didn't know that by tomorrow morning, 100 engines would thunder down her street. The next morning, the sun was up, but the world still felt gray. Keisha's shoes squished from last night's rain as she walked up the cracked steps of her apartment building. Her clothes were still damp, her hair clinging to her face. She barely slept. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw that man's pale face and the blinking ambulance lights. By the time she reached her door, voices echoed down the hall. Mrs. Turner, the older woman from next door, stood gossiping with another tenant. They fell silent when Keisha passed, but not fast enough. "She helped one of those bikers," Mrs. Turner whispered. "Those gang people. Can you believe that?" Keisha turned the key and stepped inside without a word. The apartment smelled faintly of damp clothes and worry. Her little brother Malik sat at the table staring at an empty bowl. "We got anything to eat?" he asked. Keisha opened the fridge, half a loaf of bread and a pitcher of tap water. "I'll make toast, okay?" she said, forcing a smile. As the bread browned in the toaster, someone knocked softly at the door. It was Mrs. Turner, arms crossed, eyes sharp. "Child, I heard what you did last night," she said. "You helped a gang member. You don't know those people. Your kindness gonna get you hurt." Keisha looked at her, tired. "He was dying." Mrs. Turner shook her head. "And now you might have brought trouble to your door." She turned and walked off. When the door clicked shut, Keisha leaned against it, the words echoing. Kindness shouldn't hurt this bad. Her eyes landed on the white card sitting on the counter. The Crown logo caught the morning light. She hesitated, then grabbed her phone. Her thumbs trembled as she typed, "Hi, this is Keisha." A second later, her phone buzzed. "Meet us at Ridge Diner, 3 p.m. The Ridge Diner sat at the edge of town, the kind of place where the coffee was strong, and the air smelled like grease and rain. Keisha stood outside for a full minute before walking in. Her hands were damp with nerves, her heart pounding. Through the foggy glass, she could already see them. Bikers. Dozens of them. Leather vests, tattoos, silver chains catching the light. The deep rumble of engines outside never stopped. It was like the storm from last night had followed her here. When she finally pushed open the door, the bell jingled softly. Every head turned. For a moment, the diner went silent. Then, something strange happened. One by one, the men and women at the tables began to stand. Each nodded as she passed, their expressions solemn, respectful, almost reverent. A man she recognized from the night before, the one who'd given her the card, appeared from the back. "Keisha," he said with a small smile. "Glad you came. He's waiting for you." He led her through the narrow aisle to a booth in the corner. The man sitting there looked older but strong, eyes sharp, beard streaked with gray. A thin bandage peeked from under his shirt. "You're the one who saved me," he said, voice rough but kind. "Name's Hawk." Keisha nodded awkwardly. "I just did what anyone would do." Hawk smiled faintly, then pulled a worn photograph from his vest. It showed a little girl with bright eyes and a pink helmet sitting on a tiny bike. "This was my daughter, Lila," he said quietly. "Leukemia took her when she was 7. After she passed, I started the Phoenix Ride Foundation. We ride for families who can't afford treatment. We help them get back on their feet." Keisha's throat tightened. "I'm so sorry." He slid the photo back into his vest. "You'll understand soon," Hawk said, eyes steady on hers. "Tomorrow morning," she blinked. "Understand what?" He just smiled. What real kindness sets in motion. As she left the diner, the roar of engines followed her into the wind. What did I walk into? The next morning began like any other, quiet, gray, and heavy. Keisha was pouring tap water into Malik's cereal bowl when the sound started. A low rumble in the distance, like thunder rolling through the city. It grew louder and louder, until the windows began to shake. Malik's spoon froze mid-air. "Sis, what is that?" Keisha frowned, stepping to the window. What she saw made her heart stop. Motorcycles. Dozens, no hundreds, of them, lined up bumper to bumper down their entire street. Chrome flashing in the morning sun, engines growling in perfect rhythm. Every head turned toward her building. Outside, neighbors peeked through curtains. Someone shouted, "Call the cops!" Another voice echoed, "It's a gang!" Mrs. Turner from next door ran onto her porch, clutching her phone. "I told you, Keisha. They're trouble! You brought them here!" Keisha's hands trembled. She grabbed Malik's arm. "Stay behind me." Then she stepped outside. The crowd of bikers shifted. A familiar face, the young man from the gas station, stepped forward. Cole, his voice cut through the noise. "Everyone, listen," he shouted. "We're not here for trouble. We're here for her," he pointed toward Keisha. "This woman saved our brother when no one else would. She gave her last $6 to keep him alive." The street fell silent. From the front row, Hawk stepped forward, moving slowly but steady. His voice was deep, commanding. Keisha Brown gave everything she had for a stranger. So today, we're giving her everything she needs to start again. He nodded once, and the bikers moved into action. A semi-truck pulled up, its trailer packed to the roof, boxes of food, furniture, school supplies, even toys. The neighbors watched, stunned, as the riders unloaded it all. One man carried a table into Keisha's apartment. Another rolled in a brand-new fridge. Mrs. Turner lowered her phone, tears welling in her eyes. "Lord have mercy." Hawk turned back to the crowd. "She gave her last $6, he said, voice breaking just slightly. "We're giving her a new life." Silence. Then applause. First from one person, then from everyone. Neighbors, children, even strangers down the block. Hawk looked at Keisha, smiling through the noise. "This," he said, "is the world we ride for, where kindness wins." The street that had once been quiet and broken now buzzed with life. Neighbors who'd hidden behind curtains were out on their porches helping unload boxes. Kids laughed as bikers handed out backpacks filled with supplies. Malik sat cross-legged on the sidewalk, grinning wider than Keisha had seen in months as a biker lifted him onto a shiny chrome seat. Inside their small apartment, Hawk stood by the door holding an envelope. "This," he said, handing it to her, "is from the Phoenix Ride Foundation. You earned this, not as charity, but as respect." Keisha opened it slowly. Inside was a check for $20,000 and a letterhead. She read the words aloud, her voice trembling. Community Coordinator, full-time position, the Phoenix Ride Foundation. She looked up, stunned. "A job?" Hawk nodded. "You've got the heart we need." "You saw a man, not a patch?" "That's rare." Tears filled her eyes. "I just saw someone who needed help." He smiled. "Exactly. That's why you belong with us?" Outside, two bikers rolled up with her old beat-up sedan. The paint was clean, the dents gone, the engine purring like new. Malik screamed, "Sis! They fixed our car!" Keisha laughed through tears. "I can't believe this." "Believe it," Hawk said softly. "You gave $6 and it turned into hope for an entire block." The day stretched into evening. The community worked side by side, painting walls, carrying furniture, sharing food. Laughter echoed between the buildings. Even Mrs. Turner joined in, handing out lemonade cups with a shy smile. As the sun sank low, the bikers climbed back onto their motorcycles, engines rumbling softly like a promise. Hawk gave Keisha one last nod. "You ever need family?" he said. "You've got one now." She stood in the golden light, Malik's hand in hers, watching the bikes disappear down the road. For the first time in years, Keisha Brown wasn't surviving, she was living. By evening, the story had already started to spread. A teenager across the street had filmed the entire scene. The roaring bikes, the food deliveries, the moment Hawk handed Keisha the check. Within hours, the video hit 1 million views on social media. The caption read, "The $6 Angel, she helped a biker, and the world helped her back." Comments poured in faster than she could read them. Faith in humanity restored. Proof that good people still exist. But mixed among them were skeptics too. This has to be fake. Staged for clout. Keisha didn't know what to think. She wasn't looking for fame. She'd only wanted to help someone breathe. But something bigger had started. People began tagging Chapter Phoenix Ride and sharing their own acts of kindness. A woman buying groceries for a stranger, a man fixing an elderly neighbor's roof, a group of bikers organizing food drives in other cities. Within a week, the foundation's page was flooded with donations and messages from around the country. Reporters called. Cameras came. When Keisha finally appeared on local news, she sat nervously in a borrowed dress, hands clasped tight. "I didn't do anything special," she said softly. "I just did what I hoped someone would do for me." Later, Hawk was asked what he thought about all the attention. He smiled, gaze steady on the camera. "Kindness spreads faster than hate," he said, "if you let it." A year later, the corner of Maple and Ridge didn't look the same. Where crumbling paint and broken windows once marked the neighborhood, a new sign now gleamed in the sunlight. "The Brown House Community Center." Children's laughter echoed from inside. The building that once stood forgotten now pulsed with life. Tutoring rooms, food shelves, and a small office where Keisha worked every morning. On the wall behind her desk hung a photo of a little girl in a pink bike helmet. Lila, the daughter of the man whose life she had saved. That day, a nervous teenage boy stood at her door clutching a wrinkled envelope. "Miss Keisha," he said quietly, "I'm short on rent this month. I don't know what to do." Keisha smiled and reached into her purse. She pulled out a $10 bill and pressed it into his hand. "Take this," she said gently. "Don't pay me back. Pass it on." The boy looked confused, then nodded. She watched him leave with tears in her eyes. The same way Hawk once looked at her, with gratitude and disbelief. As the sun set, she stepped outside, watching the street fill with neighbors helping one another, painting walls, carrying groceries, kids riding bikes. Her voice came softly in the narration. "A year ago, $6 could have fed me for a day. Instead, it fed a movement. Kindness doesn't need to be big. It just needs to be real. The music swelled, gentle piano, warm bass hum, as the screen faded to black. "Who can you help today?" the narrator asked. If this story touched you, share it. Because kindness multiplies when it moves.